Betting, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Bet with the Best podcast. Its mission is to explore better ways to bet on races, to seek out new, successful players, and to boldly go where no podcast has gone before.
The Bet with the Best podcast is sponsored by Amwager, an ADW built by horse players for horse players. Speed, power, and ease of use are at the core of Amwager. The platform is packed with features including live video, race replays, conditional wagering, and true odds, a predictive estimate of the off odds that will give you an edge. Amwager gives players the information and tools they need to quickly make anything from a win bet to a complex structured group of pick 5 tickets using the ABC strategy. With a rating of over 4.5 stars on Google, Amwager is a favorite among horse players. Sign up now at amwager.com to take advantage of the simplest sign-up bonus in the business, a 100% first deposit match up to $150. If you want to bet with the best, then you need an edge. You need Amwager.
Welcome to episode 47 of the Bet with the Best podcast. Once again, joining us on the show is Dean Towers for part 2 of our discussion. Welcome back to the show, Dean.
Hey, Chris. Thanks.
In the part 1, in our previous pod, we talked about sort of how you got into the game and sort of a successful run you made about 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So now we're going to focus on you kind of you saw your edges start to evaporate 20 years ago. Maybe talk a little bit about how what happened there, and then you have recently sort of transformed your approach based on all the changes in the game. So we can talk about those changes and how it's affected the way you play and kind of what you're doing today. But let's pick it up with all right. You've had a run of success. And your edges start to go. So kind of talk about that, how you realized that, how you dealt with that. And then we'll talk about, what you're doing today.
Yeah, sure. I think I was maybe 9 years in. And Betfair left the country. They got taken over by Paddy Power. Paddy Power didn't want to be in any gray area, so they left. So that was an area where I had done pretty well in that account over the years. So it was kind of a money-making place. But more than that, it was my process. Like I started there when I was playing like inside the pylons, and other people that were playing like me were doing race by race with a lot of tracks and things. So I had my process down. 9 years of doing it, probably about 5 or 6 doing it like that. So that kind of changed. I'm a process person. And then I had to bet just solely in the pools. And then the edges or the signal fees, there was a big fight. Everybody's signal fees weren't high enough. So they started raising those. So rebates got smaller. And then the first year I just played in an ADW. I had the track ADW. I stopped there completely. I think I'm major league lifetime loser in there, no rebate. I just had that for a couple tracks I couldn't play. So I stopped that completely and just played in the rebate one. And I remember my first year, I don't play pick sixes. I played maybe 20 pick sixes, 25 pick sixes in my whole life, the $2 ones. And I had some models at Del Mar, I think it was, that were working for that meet in June, July. And I hit there was a carryover, and I just saw, race 4, carryover, big carryover. And I looked, and I had 2 horses that looked like they wouldn't be used. So I keyed them both, and I made a pick 4, pick 4 with the rest of the horses. And spent like $64 or $48 or something. And I hit it, paid $72,000. And at the end of the year, with harness racing included, like everything, and rebate, I had made $56,000 that year. So in effect, I was a losing player. You can't count some Del Mar pick six that you saw there was a carryover and handicapped it for half an hour. That's got to go out of your results. So I was in effect a losing player. Like I couldn't even win with rebate. And I think I had some lifestyle choices and things as well. But things like, bike changes and things, harness was just getting sharper. And thoroughbred racing, as I said, I'm not a Maloney or Borman or Larme. I'm me, and I'm not as sharp as you guys finding good spot plays. I don't do that work. ITP said he watched 60 hours of tape. Knowing ITP, watch beta. But I wasn't doing that for thoroughbred racing. So I didn't have anything to fall back on other than my numbers and my Betfair and my edge of getting a rebate on a lot of these tracks. And I started to just, I was definitely a losing player that last year. Of course, you're stubborn. At least I am. So I played for another, I think, 6 months, and I got killed. Just wasn't into it, and I wasn't winning, and I would have had to make a deposit. I remember that one time I had to make a deposit, and I said, I'm not depositing. And I still had a couple horses that I had bought, ironically or coincidentally from, winning money at the track. And that's the same thing ITP used to do. We used to talk about that. He said, we're the best, horse players are the best for full crops because, we're into the game all day. And if we win some money at the track, we buy a horse. But so I went to the track and did some things, but I stopped using JCapper, and I didn't, I just dabbled, played, lost, might have had 1 or 2 good years, or a good year where I hit something, but I wasn't playing. I was playing 1/25th or 1/40th maybe of the volume I was, and I just couldn't beat the game anymore, and I was fine with that.
So your edge evaporated. It sounds like you kept pretty good records, or were you?
Yeah.
So you could tell, you couldn't lie to yourself. The numbers were telling you were no longer a winning player, even though you had had a pretty good run of success. So you kept playing, but the level of play dropped an order of magnitude, it sounds like. But
yeah.
But it sounds like something brought you back, and now you're kind of re-engaged. So how'd that happen?
Yeah, I honestly, your pod is so amazing, and butter up the host in the second hour, but your pod is amazing, and you've got some amazing people on this thing. Like, you've got people I've looked up to my entire life. I got fortunate enough to meet Mike Maloney, fantastic guy, great player. Andy Beyer. Come on. I wouldn't have came on here if I didn't come back and have something kind of to say about today's game, because I would have been sheepish. I'm still nowhere near those guys, of course, but I'm not false modesty. I'm not, but I did come back, and I have had some success in it. I'm as shocked as anyone, first, because the game's much, much harder than it was before. But the first thing that brought me back, and this is totally ironic, were the CAWs. I started to just, I always watched racing. I always listened to it. I'm a part of it. It's in my blood. Even though if I wasn't playing regularly, I always watched it. And I started noticing in harness racing first, which I was watching more, the CAWs were on some horses. They were telling me when I was wrong. They're really good lines. The money is super sharp. There are also some barns that I am absolutely convinced that when they're signaling go, they're crushing them. And those are those weird payoffs you see in pick 3s and pick 4s where, we all get that feeling when we love a horse that's not that horse, but that horse is so hammered and so live, that that's CAW money and or some of this barn money. And it would beat me a lot, beat my opinion a lot. And I wondered why. I wondered what they were doing. And I just kept watching and watching and watching. And I got to this weird point, maybe with my tote background and Betfair background, where I just say, oh, they're telling you the 5's going to win. And it might be 4-5. Dennis brought this up on his podcast with you about how he's been betting 2-1 and unders with good ROI. I think he posted it on Twitter as well, right? I started to see this phenomenon. I'd never bet short shots before. And I just started saying, well, the horse is 4-5, but he's probably going to win. And then another bit of advice from one of your podcast guests, in Paul Matisse. He said, evaluate the horse. And I think this is great for any level of player. Evaluate the horse after you bet it. So if you bet an even money horse and he won like a 5-2 shot, don't look at the result. Look that you made a bad bet. You bet a 5-2 shot at even money. That's bad. Well, these horses they were telling you were going to win were like 7-5. I had them 5-2, and they're winning like a 3-5. So they're still good bets. I think Dennis has noticed that. That's why he has those results. So everything looked different to me, but I had this strange, odd feeling that I had some sort of better predictive power. Like I was understanding what they were doing, not how they arrived at that horse or not why that horse. Just I had a respect for the market so much, and I watched it. And I dabbled. I always dabbled. So I dabbled, and suddenly, just with that context in mind, I started to kind of do a little bit better. And that was the very, very first step, is just diving into every pool, trying to figure out where the money's funneling. Once again, there's no formula or manual. I think it's just read and recognize. I can probably share some examples later if you'd like about how I bet ITP tickets now too. But that got me kind of feeling something that there is some predictive power happening, and maybe I can use it to guide me in certain areas, and then use my handicapping skill and or numbers I have that might be able to have this hybrid kind of way to bet some of these races. But I was not playing volume. I was not doing it dedicated but that was the first, very, very first of probably 3 steps that I thought maybe I could figure out things a little bit. And it was my interest too. We're all curious. Every one of us, everybody listening to this pod, you're not listening to me dribble on for an hour or two because you're not curious about the game and love it, right? We should send out a questionnaire to people, 400 million people in North America. Are you a curious person? Check yes. If not, check no. And then attack those people with, racing promotions, because they're the ones that are going to play the game. And I'm totally curious person. I have to find out what's happening. That was the first thing that got me back looking at the game, crazily enough, Chris.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, because most of that money comes in really late from the CAW. So how are you getting that signal from the tote in a way that enables you to take advantage of that? So I'm just curious, maybe you can give some examples or spend a little bit more time on, what patterns you're seeing that would enable you to kind of determine that this is a horse that they are going to hammer.
Well, a lot of it was with the will pays. And it was interesting because, once again, if everybody is not the ITP spider web ticket thing, if everybody's making a 2x4x4, you don't want to make a 2x4x4. Everybody was complaining about late odds drops. But the late odds drops, you can forecast most of them, right? So I would, pretty much build closing lines, just like I did at Betfair long ago. I would build closing, what's the closing price going to be? Everything's a price in our game. It's so funny. We bet horses. Everybody bets horses. We bet prices. Everything. Our tickets have a price. Our 24 combination for $1 pick 4 ticket that pays $48 paid us even money. We didn't just hit the pick 4, but we don't think like that. We're sports bettors. They don't bet the Ravens against the Browns last year. They don't bet the Ravens. They bet the Ravens to win by 20.5 or more, 21 or more. So everything is a price. So if you know the closing price, you can get an idea of what that race looks like. And knowing that closing price was huge for me, just because I know where I want to key. in the first leg of a pick 3 or a double, or I'd know what it's probably going to pay. And I just made, that was a rudimentary fundamental change that I made. Is just I completely have an idea what the closing price is going to be. And from that, looking at the array of both the will pays, which, Gulfstream has rolling pick 3s, they have rolling doubles. You can see them every race. Knowing what they're paying, and then you look at the way the race is being bet, and then the way the exacta pools are, for example. Like, is this a legit 8-5 that is third choice by the CAWs in the pick 3s, or sharper money? Or are they trying to, is someone trying to fake you out? You can go down rabbit holes, but generally, you got an idea of what is being bet that race. So you could do things. I would do things, especially with pick 3s, which I definitely can talk about. I think will help smaller players. It's a magic number of 3 I have a theory about, and I think it's the way we should play pick ends. That is the ITP way, but maybe there's a little better understanding of it, because he does explain it pretty complex, I find. But I'd start at pick 3. So if I saw a spread race, when I handicapped it, it's a spread race, and I want to use 2, 4, 7, 8, and it was a second leg. And then the board would open, and certain horses that I have as part of this spread, it's suddenly not a spread race. Like, they're signaling something in the pick 3s or something that I didn't see, and maybe this isn't a spread race. And if it's not a spread race and everybody thinks it's a spread race, why isn't it? Why do they like this horse? And oftentimes, Chris, they're not doing alchemy. They don't have crystal balls. They're just using handicapping, and they're very, very sharp at it. And they're funneling you to a set of horses that aren't a spread race, maybe. So if it's not a spread race, then what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to key a horse there. And if it's the start of the pick 4, they're signaling me on a horse I enjoy. I look at the horse and I can completely understand what they're doing. I understand. I like this horse. I think this horse might be a good bet. I think they're right. I can single in a spread race. So it's a lot of simple stuff like that I'm just trying to use to trying to go through the funneling. There's tons of races that we bet, why so many handicappers or professional handicappers don't like short fields. I mean, the Bluegrass opens up, I think there's 7 horses. Chancer McPatrick's going to open up at 2-1 or 5-2. McBurnham Square was going to open up at 3-1. I like East Avenue in there. I knew it was going to be about 5-1. I mean, it opens up exactly like you expect. But there's a lot of races that aren't bet as you expect. The Maiden Claimer 12-5 at Gulfstream in the second. A harness race at the Meadowlands, where their fields are just so rough right now, with slots have just hurt them so much, opposing slots. They're terrible races. Like, getting a handle on how these teams that are betting ridiculous amounts of money that I can't even fathom betting, like, I don't even know how they're doing it in this environment. They're having success, so they are telling you something, and you've got to try to work through it in some way to see what they're telling you about that race. And I spend some time on that.
So I just want to dig a little bit deeper on how you would do that, especially say you're playing a pick 3, and you're looking to the CAWs to see if they're turning a spread race into a single for you. It kind of sounds like what you're trying to do. So is that you're looking at the first leg and the will pays into that to see what they're betting? I mean, how do you detect that signal from the CAWs in time to factor that into your play?
Yeah, educated guessing, and you're wrong a lot, right? There's people I'm sure that are much better than me. I'm absolutely 100% positive. I'll give you an example. How about just a pick 5 at Tampa? Should I do that?
Yeah.
Okay. There was a pick 5 at Tampa, and this incorporates how I'm thinking about pick ends as well, that I think is the ITP way a bit. But first race at Tampa, the first race I looked at, it's a pick 5, right? The first race I looked at, there were two horses, say 5 and 6. They were both favorites. I couldn't really think, I couldn't see another horse beating them. The first race, of course, at Tampa does not have a bunch of will pays or anything like that. So you're looking at the board and the exactas and things, and it's obvious these two horses are going to be bet. There's nothing else that looks like they're going to be there. And the second race was a spread race. It was a turf maiden claimer. And it was a 4-horse spread race, and the doubles are being bet like a 4-horse spread race. And my handicapping says it's a 4-horse spread race. And then I looked at the third leg, and the third leg was, remember, it was a 4 and 7, and it was kind of like the first race. So right there, I have nothing. There's no way I'm betting a pick 5. I got to go 2 chalk by spread, by 2 chalk. Everybody in the world's going 2 by 4 by 2. So I can't bet this. The race goes off. I think actually the first race I would have lost anyway. I think someone else won, but it was one of those 5-7 claimers things. Second race goes, it's the maiden claimer. And there's a hardy horse, well-bred, that looks like it can't run a lick. I had that the 4th choice. I had that my 4th handicapping choice. If I had to go 3 deep, I would not have used this horse. Just looks like it can't run. But connections are pretty good, well-bred, and they were dropping it into a maiden claimer. I look at a few statistics. Maybe it's a bit interesting. But what interested me most, that he was second choice in the doubles. And I had him 4th choice. It doesn't make sense to me. So I said, is that enough to take this pick 4? Because what I can do now, because somebody's signaling me something I didn't expect with my handicapping, and the horse opened up 8-1, Chris. So that's another good thing. If a horse opens up 8-1 and everybody's spreading 4 horses and they lost the first leg, they might go to 3. So they might leave off the 8-1 because it looks dead on the board, but it's not dead on the board. So I said, I wonder if I can key this horse. I don't like the horse. I didn't like anything. It's a maiden claimer, but maybe I can key this horse. So can I do something with this ticket now? So I can key that. I keyed that horse, and then I said I still get to the third leg, and I've got those 2 chalk. It is what it is. Sometimes you have to do this. So I said, but I need more value somewhere else, or I'm not going to take the pick 4. And I went to the third leg, and it was a total spread race. Seriously, 6 horses, maiden 7.5s or non-winners 2 7.5s, whatever. It was a terrible race. And the last leg was an even money shot that I thought was a totally legit 8-5 shot that looked like an even money shot, but looked totally legit. Love the horse, had good numbers. And I said, the only way I can play this then is if I single in a spread race, and I can use those 2 logicals that everybody's going to use in the second leg. And then in the third leg, I cannot spread 5 horses and undo an even money shot. There's no way I can take that ticket. But there were 2 horses out of the 5 or 6 that people would spread with that had something that was interesting, just something I had on them. So I said I can go use 2 there, and I'll key that horse that I think is pretty unbeatable. In the last leg, I didn't like anybody else. So I went 1 by 2 by 2 by 1. But that's kind of the way I use it. The pick 5 was a no, because I thought the second race was going to be spread, and the third leg was those two logicals. So there's nothing there for me. I stopped right there. But when I saw what happened in the second race, I saw that this horse opened up at 8-1, looked terribly not live. But I saw the way they bet the horse in the exactas, and there's the big pool at Tampa. There's some money in there that's sharp, and it shocked me that horse was second. I made a little wee ticket. I'm not outlaying $1 billion here, but I made a little wee ticket to try to take advantage of that. And that's the way I'm doing. The horse, of course, was a complaint horse. That horse was live. The barn, whatever it was, I can't find the CAWs finding numbers on that horse because it was pretty bad. But that horse got hammered down to 2-1 favoritism in the last flash. But I got way more than 2-1 in the pick 5. That pick 5 came, the pick 4 came back $9.94 for $1, and it was 2-1 onto a 2-1. onto a 13-1 onto an even money. So I'm trying to look for holes like that, and that's the way I kind of use this stuff a little bit. It's 10% of my game. It's not going to throw me off horses or whatever, but it's a pass-fail test for a lot of things that I go through in this new world of CAWville, if that makes sense. I hope that example maybe makes some sense.
Yeah, would you bet that horse to win? The one that you keyed at the beginning of the pick four? Or is that just...
I did bet. No, yeah. I did. I didn't see it going to 2-1. I think the horse was gotta remember. Horse was 7-2 at Betfair. So I kind of thought he would end up 3-1. But he ended up 2-1.
Are you looking at those Betfair odds then to help you too?
I look at everything. Yeah. Everything I can get my hands on. I have screens up. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. There's a story that's interesting to me. Alan Woods, the famed horse player, I think some folks said he was a Benter guy, but whatever, it doesn't matter. He was running the Hong Kong markets. Like they were pretty much market making Hong Kong horse racing in the 2000s. And I remember he was getting interviewed in the Australian, or it might have been, I read it in a book, but they were trying to take down that triple trio carryover and shot 10 or whatever. And he's at his condo in Singapore, or Thailand, wherever he lived. And the reporter for the Australian was there, and the race is 20 minutes away, whatever. And he says, "Oh, give me a second here," and pauses the reporter from asking questions. He went up to his computer, and he's got his guys around him because they're going to bet 500,000, I think, into this. And he opened up Betfair, which was on Hong Kong then. Betfair covered Hong Kong then until they told him you can't anymore. And he looked at the screen for about 45 seconds, the Betfair screen, on this Hong Kong race that they're betting 500,000 into. And he turns around and he says, "Guys, I think we're on the wrong horses." It's the market maker of Hong Kong racing, with people in the paddock, with people watching workouts, a multi-million dollar enterprise. And he looked at the markets, which he considered sharp enough, and he expected the markets to show something which they're not showing. So I figure if Alan Woods, the market maker of Hong Kong, can do it, I better look at as much as I possibly can. And I've been that way forever. I try to look at absolutely everything. I don't want to get blindsided. I just try to look at everything, Chris.
So you mentioned the rule of three as a sort of a simplification of what ITP talks about in its horizontal betting structure. Can you spend a little more time on that rule of three?
Yeah, that's the second thing that got me back into maybe trying this after I had a little bit of success. My tickets were not very good, as I mentioned. And the argument on Twitter, for those that don't know, or argument on Horseplayerville, where Inside the Pylons would make fun of TVG tickets, and I don't know, Todd Schrupp's barber joined Twitter to yell at ITP, and it was quite the brouhaha. But that was an impetus that got me, of course, thinking more. I got right into it. I was just looking at the criticisms of him and what he was saying when sharp players said, "Oh, you shouldn't do this." So I really got into it. I know you did as well, like intellectually. And I went back and looked, and I said, my pick end tickets need to improve. There's no way I would ever go back and spend time at this game if I'm making tickets like I used to. That got me into thinking about it a lot. And I came up with kind of a magic number of 3. You and I, Chris, we walk into an OTB tomorrow, and there's a lifer there. He's 80 years old. He's been betting tickets for 60 years. We talked to him. It's before the first race at Churchill. And you say, "I'm thinking of taking a daily double." And the old timer guy, he says, what are you going to take? And you say, well, I'm going with the 7-5 and the 5-2 shot in this race, the two favorites. And the next race, I'm going to go 3-4-5 that are 1, 2, 3 in the morning line. That guy's going to look at you like you're from another planet. He's going to say, son, and people our age, Chris, calling us son is cool. But son, what are you doing, right? There's no value in that. The double could pay less than the cost of your ticket. And then you say, okay, I can get that. But what about the third leg? You know, I like a 4-1 shot. And the old timer making tickets the same way for their whole life would say, oh, you can't do that. You're devaluing your win bet there. I mean, there's no way you would take that. Just bet the $6 or $12 to win. Forget about trying to hook it up with all these devalue things. And then you'd say to him, yeah, but I like a 5-1 shot in the fourth leg. And he'd go, oh, a 5-1 shot in the fourth leg. Oh, so, oh, you got a 3-1 you like there and a 5-1. And, oh, it's a pick four. Pick fours can pay something. Oh, well, you know, there's a Pletcher horse in that fourth race. And, you know, he's probably going to be even money. And you wouldn't want to lose your pick four ticket. So, you know what? If you add that Pletcher horse in there, I'll split the ticket with you. Conversations like that we hear all the time. When you add that fourth, fifth, or sixth leg, it's like we forget about everything, and suddenly there's this magic value. Back in the 50s, there was a guy that came up with that magic number where we have our working memory in our brains, numbers we can handle in our brains. The average person is 7. And you give people an 8th number, a 9th number, a 10th number, the recall drops to the bottom. And I just thought, even like with me, I've been playing tickets forever, and I think I'm a seasoned player. I would get the fourth and fifth legs in my working memory, and I just would get discombobulated like that. And I said, because I'm playing on the fly, and I said, I'm going to scale back to 3s, and I am going to play pick 3s, and I'm going to practice making better tickets playing pick 3s. And no shame in that. There's no shame in just going right back to basics. I've always felt that way. So I started playing pick 3s, and I started saying, okay, well, I can use one of those 2 chalk in the first leg. I can get rid of 50% of the money. Second leg, oh, geez, those 2 chalk are going to battle head on. And I really got some models on the 7 horse. That's the closer. And I think that 7 horse can win. There's another closer from the outside. And the third race was, I listened to the Bet with the Best, or the Sport at Kings pod, and you know, Chris liked the 8, and Scott was on mute, but Scott, you know, unmuted himself and said, I like the 3.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
I've got my over under of that. People should listen to that. My over under is 2.5 times you have to say, Scott, I think you're on mute. It's so funny. I laugh every time. But a great pod, right? So you guys got 2 horses. Maybe I don't even have an opinion there. So what I do, I took it back to 3. I got rid of 50% of the money in the first leg. I got rid of, you could use a chalk in the second leg, whatever. Or you can, you know, two horses in the first leg that are even money and 9-5, and you don't like them. You like the closer, so he's 5-1. You can use a chalk in the second leg or whatever. And then you can add a couple of horses that you heard on the Sport of Kings pods in the third leg, or a couple of horses you like that you think are, you know, the inside on the turf course is a bog, and you want to take a couple outside closers or something. You can do that for $2, Chris. You know, the variance is high. I get it. You're going to lose more of these tickets because you're trying to eliminate money and make a ticket pay something. But it gives you good practice for very low volume. So if you have a $400 bankroll in Twin Spires, there's 50-cent pick 3s at Keeneland, right? I think. You can fool around with 3 races and spend $4 for 8 combinations, or you can do 6 combinations for $3, or 4 combinations for $2. You got a $400 bankroll. It's like 0.5%. So you can practice with these things, and obviously you're not doing them all the time. You're not indiscriminately throwing out horses or things like that. But when an opportunity presents itself, you can play with this 3. You can do it working memory while you're playing, and you can make your ticket pay something. We just don't think about that enough. Try to make a $6 ticket pay 12 to 1. Try to make it pay $72 if you have that opinion. Is it going to pay 72? Am I going to get 6 to 1 on this? And it really avoids your brain from thinking like everyone else. And I think it's a good way to do it. I think the threes are a magic number where we can do that with our working memory fine, any average player. And I think it's a good way to practice if you want to do it. If you want to try to play a bit more like ITP with these tickets, if you're happy the way you're doing it and you like all this coverage and split with your friends and you're having a great time playing racing, I wouldn't want to ever talk anybody out of anything, but because people have different styles of play. But if you're open to it, you see your results in pick ends are not what you want. Maybe you're betting spider web tickets that look like everybody else's, and you're hoping that, the last leg's coming. Oh, I hope it pays something. And your $36 ticket is paying $48. You're constructing tickets like that, and you don't want to do that anymore. Try some pick threes like that. Work through each race systematically, trying to get rid of some money, and you might find that you're good at it and you enjoy it.
Yeah, I like that for a couple reasons. One, just to hit anything beyond the pick three, your strike rate goes down unless you become really spready, which is the bad habit you're trying to break yourself of. I mean, if you're playing ITP style tickets, your strike rate's not going to be very high, and that can be tough mentally and tough on your bankroll, even if you're sharp. So keeping it to a pick three increases that strike rate and makes it you're less likely to feel the need to spread out to hit. So I like that part of it. Also, you could turn that into a pick four if there's a stone cold single. Then you can just look at the other three legs and play it like a pick three, right? And just single the one horse. Now all of a sudden you've got a pick four, and maybe you can leverage that and get a little more of a payout. So I mean, you could play the same thinking.
Yeah, I can share an example of a goofy ticket I never would have taken 20 years ago. That some people might remember. That is a pick four actually that I work through. If you want.
I was on mute. No,
Scott's yes. Laughing if he's listening.
Yes, I did that just for Scott. Go ahead, share that, please.
Yeah, I remember I had a pretty poor. Actually, no, I had a good Florida Derby day and Arkansas Derby day that Saturday. I did poor at the harness that night, and I wasn't going to play the next day. It was a long, long day, right? Noon till midnight. And it was pouring rain, so I played all day. And but I opened it up, and there was a Gulfstream force out, and I just look at those races. But I got to Oaklawn because a Gulfstream rained out, and I was actually up a bit. I had made a few dollars, and it was I was going to shut down. I looked at the fifth race at Gulfstream at Oaklawn, and I liked the horse, but I went through my process of the three, and because there's no pick five or four there. I looked at the pick three, and other than my key horse, which was a nice horse, I liked that 5 or 6 to 1, usually good to key, and a big spread race. I couldn't find anything in the last two, but I noticed the third leg was gaming against Clever again. And I just looked at gaming and I saw, oh God, gaming's going to be some big chalk, and everybody's picking gaming. I glanced quickly and it had the Baffert, two bullets. Shipped them with cornucopian, probably there to win. I don't want anything to do with that race. Plus I can't find anything in the second leg. So I just played my horse to win. But then I did a few things, looked up, and the seventh race opened up, and it was on my TV still. So I went back and I looked, and because I saw gaming opened up soft. So why? I'm not a fan of gaming anyway, but I didn't even look at Clever again, and I didn't look at any other horse in the race. But I said, why is he open up soft? So I said, I better have a look at it. And sure enough, the CAWs are opening up soft in the pick threes too. And or the crowd or sharp handicappers, whoever it is. And I said, geez, look at this Clever again. I watch a replay. Man, this horse beat gaming. There's nobody else that can win this. So I just immediately, my process went through it. In my head, it was race 7. It started at pick 4. So I said, most people that have already taken a ticket probably keyed gaming, and people that are seeing the way the board opens up and there's two favorites now, they're probably going to start this 2. And I'm going to key this clever again. The horse looks absolutely fine. I'm not a fan of gaming, and I can get rid of 50% of the money or more. So good way to start. Check the second leg. The second leg was Chris Harmon with that horse that raced on that filly that raced on Derby Day. A really nice filly. I remember watched her in her maiden, and she ran beautifully, straight as an arrow. She got beat, but I love that horse. And I said, but not enough, because everybody's keying this horse. But I look back and thank God for Brad Cox, because there's a Brad Cox horse in there that just doesn't look like it's anywhere near as fast as the Chris Hartman horse. And people are going to go 2 there. Like, everybody loves to put in a Brad Cox. And the Brad Cox horse was 5-2 morning line or something, or 2-1 morning line. So there's enough there where I'm going to get rid of some money too. So I'm still alive and thinking of taking a ticket. I get to the third leg and total spread race. But I check my numbers, super hot pace index, and I check the time frame. I use time from US, and they had one of those hot pace things. And 2 of the horses on the hot pace were the horses people are going to spread. And there's a horse I also liked on replay. I'm doing all this with 10 or 12 minutes to post. Horse I also liked on replay. I had the best closing numbers and looked like she was going to sit a trip. So I said, have I got another key? Do I have a key in a spread race? I do. And then I went to the last race in Oaklawn, and I think it was an Arkansas bred, and there was the 1 and the 5 who were like totally obvious, everybody's using. And but there were a couple others that could have numbers. So I thought to myself, they're going 2 by 2 by 4, and they're only going to go 2 because they already spent $16. They're going to use the 1 and the 5 in the last leg, heavy. And a couple of these horses that look like they can run a bit, they're not going to use. So if everybody's ticket looks like that, can I go 1 by 1 by 1 by 4? And remember, I'm quitting. I'm not betting a lot of money, Chris. So it's a 4 combination ticket, but I'm just trying to think this systematically through. And we always remember the ones that win, of course. But that was late in the day. I took it for $5, which is $20, 4 combos. Haven't been to the track in a while, but I think that's like a beer and a slice of pizza and a tip. We're not talking a lot of money. And the people spreading spent $32 for a $1 ticket, and I'm spending $20 for a $5 ticket. And gaming, clever again, of course, dusted gaming. The Hartman horse is just a great filly. I even bet her at Churchill, actually. She ran 4th in that stakes race. I got lucky in the third leg. The Asmussen speed horse was really good, but my horse got the perfect trip and won by 6 inches. And then I had 4 horses going in the last leg, and I won a head bump with one of the non-big favorites. This horse was 6-1. So I think I got a 7-5, 7-5, 2-1, 6-1 across for $5. And for $1, it paid $3.60. Like, that's remarkable value just by, trying to think this through and getting rid of horses. That's what I've been doing, and it works the other way too. I can take bigger tickets when I'm spreading in a race where I don't like something everybody's singling. But that's just a little example off the cuff, going through it in real time. Horses you like, horses you think that are going to win, like a Clever again, who's racing in the Preakness, like a Hartman horse in a non-winners one that's on Derby Day in a stakes race, like a really nice filly in a listed stake in the third leg, and then throwing in a few Arkansas breds.
ITP would be proud. I like
well,
that.
He'd probably tell me to take the pick 3 and just walk away. But I just think of things like that now, and I don't make it a staple in my play. Your point's extremely important, I think, for smaller players, and I see so many smaller players do this. Smaller bankroll players is the pick 5 makes up such a big part of their bankroll This doesn't. You can do this for $4 and you can practice, and then you can concentrate on betting winners. Like you said, making sure you're betting in the win pool. A 5% win bet with a $400 bankroll is $20. Bet your 20 to wins. Take your $3.50 or $2.50 or $2 pick threes at Keeneland and fool around with it. But the habits are so bad with smaller capitalized players with pick fives. I think they're just a scourge. Like, not only, how many times have you heard this? And I know you have, because we all have. How many times have you heard a guy or a gal that is so stoked to play a horse, like thinks it's the bet of the year, and it's the fourth leg of a pick five, say at Aqueduct in the fourth leg, and they make a pick five ticket and they're alive into that fourth leg. They've tied up all their money. They've overbet their bankroll. Two bad things we shouldn't do as gamblers. But you also get to that fourth leg and the horse is 9-2 on the board. And it's a wonderful bet. And I'll say, how much are you going to bet on your bet of the century? And I will hear back, I've got him going in the pick five. And we all know what happens. The horse runs off the screen, pays $11, and then you lose the last leg. And you're miserable, right? That pick five, taking that pick five made you miserable. And I understand why you didn't bet the horse too, because you're so emotionally invested in that pick five. You're living and dying with every leg. And then you get to that fourth leg and you don't want to bet your horse you have keyed, because you feel double pain. You lost your win bet and you lost the pick five. So there's so many bad habits with them that I think if you scale them back as a smaller player, I think there are really good things that ITP and other people on this podcast have said about these tickets. I think you can fit it to make if you're willing to change and you want to change, I think you can fit it to your style of play for a very low cost. And you won't be pulling your hair out when you lose a pick three, like you will a pick five. You won't be not betting your horse. If you love a horse in the second leg of a pick three, you're always going to bet the horse because you're just not invested into it that much. I don't know if that makes sense. I think you alluded to that a little bit when you said about some of the bad habits, but I really do believe that they're pretty tough for a lot of smaller bankroll players. No,
I agree. The simpler you can keep it, the better. And especially when you're, and also just if you don't feel comfortable with your ability to bet efficiently, the simpler the bet, the less it's going to hurt you. If you're playing a win bet, you don't have to know how to bet efficiently, as long as you have some idea of when you have value, or at least when you perceive that you have value. Your ticket structure is pretty simple. You just bet to win. But, as you stretch it out, and either way, vertically or horizontally, then, the way you bet becomes a much more important factor in your ability to be successful long-term. Whereas just in the win pool, if you're a sharp handicapper, you can do all right. If you can't, then you're probably not a sharp handicapper.
Yeah,
but if you're sharp,
Graham's,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's just Marshall Graham's podcast was that, right? He hammers horses to win. He's very sharp at Oaklawn. He knows that circuit, and he's going to take his splash that way. Many, many ways to play, and that's the way he chose. He chooses at Oaklawn. I'm sure it works out very well for him. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. But also, Chris, I think we have this misconception sometime, I know, with some smaller players, and I know a lot of smaller players that overbet their bankroll. Like, I know one in particular, he just loves playing pick fives. Another friend of his is successful at pick fives, and he's kind of trying to do that. I think you're conditioned to play them. They're on your screen all day. Like, you want to play them so badly that they're all there, and you get it in your head you have to. But or even if you listen to Barry Meadow, right? Barry Meadow with his pick fives, pick six syndicates. Like, I don't dabble in those pools because I think Barry Meadow's amazing. I don't bet like Tommy Massis. Tommy's got it covered. Tommy's like Mason Malmuth in poker to me. So is Barry Meadow. Like, I don't want to fish in those ponds. But I think there's a misconception that everybody that's successful fishes in those ponds and hits those big tickets. But like you allude to in the wind pool, it's there. But I will give you another neat example of a player that I have utmost respect for that has been playing professionally for 50 years. Quiet person, not on Twitter, doesn't even know who Inside the Pylons is. But I talked to him on a Friday. We share a little bit of information. Excuse me, my hay fever. It's that time of the year in Canada. I was talking to him, and texted him, and I said, got anything that you're looking at? And he says, I think I'm going to take a shot on the 8 and the 8th or something. And I said, oh, you can have all the money there. I go, they're not beating the 3. You know, we're horse players. We have a little fun arguing and things. And he goes, no, that's a likely horse, but it's probably going to beat me. You know. Anyway, the race goes off, and his horse is amazing, 9-1, wins like a even money shot, incredibly sharp bet. And I texted him right after and said, you got me on that one, mister. What did you hit? You know, did you hit anything good there? I hope you hit it good. And he said, I got wind, got the axe. It's another thing. The exact underneath was a 6-1 shot. And I know he's probably gets that because I don't think he's taken a chalk under an exactive since like 1963 or something. And so he made a good score. And I said, oh, okay. And he goes, oh, I got the pick 3 going. And I said, oh, okay. What do you got it on? And he says, the 2 and the 4. So I look up, this is a 9-1 he keyed, and he's on to the 2 and the 4. And I look up and I'm like, the 2 is 15-1 morning line and the 4 is 12-1 morning line. He had 2 longer shots. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized why he included those 2. But he had, you know, there's other horses you can use if you're going into saying, I have to cash this ticket. He's using a bunch of others in there with his 8 or 9-1 shot that just ran off the screen. But he did not do that. He found value in that third leg. And there were 2 horses that I thought had extremely good value. And I ended up betting one of them. They were 17-1, came second. But even like him, not knowing ITP, he was just making his ticket pay something. He didn't want to chalk onto his 9-1 onto like 3 chalk that he just thinks are nothing. He wouldn't have taken the ticket if he was doing that. And he spent probably, I think he went key 2. I think he went 1 by 2. This is a professional player with a very big bankroll. And he probably took it for $10, you know, so he probably had $10 on each, $20. People are doing this stuff. Like these people that are successful are doing some of these things. It's not blowing smoke on Twitter to yell at TVG guests or anything. It's not a game of you know, having a little bit of fun and arguing. Like a lot of sharp players are doing this. It's remarkable how many I know are.
Well, one of the things I think that helps if you do, you know, make the simple bets as kind of the core bet, like a win bet, is Mike Maloney talked about this. It frees you up to be more, you know, selective and aggressive on, you know, the other more exotic plays because you don't feel like you got to cash them because if you're, you know, your strong opinion comes in, you're going to make a score. So you don't feel like you also have to cash all the others. More of a gravy bet, and you can, you know, be more precise, and you know, not be spready, and so it helps you, you know, just intuitively make better tickets.
And it's Mike. I heard that. I've talked to him a few times. He does think this way too. And Mike's a guy that will take, you know, big pick 6 tickets. I remember the story of him getting out of a slump at an Aqueduct pick 6, a great story. And in his book, might have shared it on the pod. But yeah, Mike's one of the greatest horse players to ever play. And this guy is the same way. He's sharp like that, very quiet, stoic. And that's what it was. That his ticket was dessert, you know, and there's so many players that take the pick 5 ticket as the main course. And if you're not bankrolled, you know, you're not bankrolled for it. You don't have the mental state for it because they're so emotional. I don't know why you're playing them. I honestly don't.
Well, I mean, everybody wants to make a score, which I understand and I appreciate, and I enjoy making that score as well. You know, and so I think it's that allure of potential big payout that attracts people. But I think, if they do it like you described and keep it really tight and don't expect to hit those are more like, maybe if I'm having a really good day, I might hit it, but I can make money on my best opinions, even if I don't hit the pick 5 or the pick 6. And then as long as you're, playing it that way and it's just a small portion of your bankroll, go for it. But like you said, if that becomes the core way you play and you don't have the capital to really do it right, it's just not a recipe for success.
It's hard. I guess I'm not, I'm not saying just play like this. I don't just play like that. But when I started back up, I started like that. And now I play pick 4 and 5s are more than my pick 3s. I just kind of started just trying to bet my opinion in a pick 3. And, now I'm taking bigger tickets in pick 4s and 5s, and I'm, doing a little better covering. I've never been good at covering. I don't like to use horses I don't like, but sometimes you have to. Inside the Pylons noted that on his pod as well, which he does really well. But my mind is not geared for a big, huge pick 6 tickets. I will never be that player. But you graduate, like I firmly believe once you make the pick 3s and you've mastered a little bit of the feeling and you caught a few, Chris, like success is huge. You'll start to get into the third leg of a pick 3 and you won't say, oh, I hope it pays something. Like, it's going to pay something because you designed it to pay something. When you think about pick 4s and 5s like that, I think it's a natural progression that you can play them a little bit better. And I still if I was at the track, I would still throw money in with friends and we'd take some caveman ticket. Like I've done it a couple times, like just for fun where I split with people. You can still have a lot of fun with it, taking goofy tickets and try to hit something. But just for breaking it down to try to understand what, some of these sharper players are doing with pick ends and treating them like dessert, not the main course, I think it can help sharpen up your game a little bit. And I think it's a good lesson, at least. It worked for me so far, touch wood. But it's something I would recommend to very small players that want to try to explore some of these methods that these guys are doing.
So you talked about, I think, step 1. You said there were 3 things that you did. I think we've hit 2 of them, but have we hit the third one that you just didn't label it, or is there a third? You said there were 3 things that helped you.
Yeah, third one was Devil's Bag and Silver Charm. I mentioned it before. It's I went back and looked at all of my historical results, and like I was ROI negative on tries, like badly, like in the 80s with rebate for years. And I knew that I pressed that button with Devil's Bag telling me to just generate volume. It's because I was a super and exacta player. And if I didn't have an opinion on those for some reason, I would bet a try, which makes absolutely no sense. That's just Devil's Bag telling me to generate volume. I chased too much. I had like just bad habits. I mentioned the tickets weren't well, so I said I'd never come back unless I, did my pick 3 thing and tried to get better at them, just started from scratch. But I have a big belief that I had to eliminate my negative ROI bets, or I had to play them much differently, or I wouldn't come back because it's too hard. So I, every time Devil's Bag's saying do something, it's got to be Demons Be Gone. That's what I think. It's gone. So I don't play those. It's still, you're human and you mess up, or maybe I had a bad run, 4 head bobs in a row or whatever, or my driver, a rad knocked me into the hot dog stand. So you still have that mental part, but Devil's Bag's gone for the most part on all those negative ROI plays. You can make your play better by increasing your hit rate, increasing your ROI, make your handicapping better, bet better tickets. But an easy way to make your ROI better is to eliminate things that you're really bad at. So I said, I'm going to eliminate those things, or I'm not going to come back and try to put my weight into this again unless I can do that. and I started to do that. And I'm continuing. Even I'm on a losing streak now. I mentioned to you the last 2 weeks, I'm not doing very well the last couple of weeks, and happens, but there's no devil's bag. Like, I haven't chased at all. In fact, I just play with a lower bankroll. My bankroll's gone down. I just play smaller win bets, smaller stuff. I'm not chasing anything. So yeah, devil's bag. It's just nice, gentlemanly silver charm with the nice hair now, telling me what to do. And that was the third thing that I did, mainly just cleaning up all my bad habits.
Any other bad habits besides playing trifectas? Are there any other kind of big changes that you made in terms of trying to clean it up?
Yeah. Like I said before, we're all creatures of habit. We all have our same styles of play. And mine, of course, was looking at all those tracks. And I have the package I was using before, actually. I've been using that. And it's every single track every day, right? So you can get everyone. I specifically, I don't upload everyone. I don't run scratches and changes for everyone, because I know I don't want to play some of them. And I know I shouldn't play some of them. And I know I'm biting off more than I can chew. That's the old volume guy. I can't do that anymore. There's no way I would be able to win if I do that. So I uploaded today 4 tracks, like Churchill, Aqueduct, Gulfstream, and Hawthorne. 5. I uploaded Monmouth, but I just looked at them. I don't have 17. There's 17 tracks you can play today. I specifically cut and pasted 5 of them. I don't chase that stuff anymore. I just try to concentrate on as few as I can. But the big one is chasing. Like, you just would go after more volume and things like that was the biggest one for me. I can't do that. There's no way I'm going to win if I do that. Staying more level-headed, playing with a low bankroll. That's the other one. I don't deposit. You'll hear a lot of horse players say, "Oh, if I had a bigger bankroll, I'd do really well." I don't believe that. I think you should be able to turn a smaller bankroll into something. Of course, there's variance. You're going to lose it. We lose a lot of races, the streaks you have. But I believe if you have a bit smaller bankroll, you should be able to build it up. I threw that test in front of me. 20 years ago, I never would have done that. But I got one of my accounts got down to $429. And I said, I'm not putting money in. And I tried to build that back up. I was betting $8 to win in that account. I was betting $15. I was betting pick 3s that were 1x2x1s to try to get that back up. And just said, I'm going to do this. If I'm beating this game again, I'm going to have to do these things. So that's a big change. I would have loaded that up 20 years ago and said, I'll forget that. I need that account higher. So just a lot of really trying to keep much more calm and trying to do things the right way, trying to manage the money the best way, trying not to chase. They've been huge this time. There's no way I'm going to win if I don't do that.
So, trying to manage your bankroll, regardless, even when it begins to shrink. So, are you scaling your bets then based on the bankroll size somehow, so you don't bet more than X percentage of your bankroll? Is that kind of how you manage that?
Yeah, that's another thing I do. Is I take money out. I would let it go in the past, and I take it out. Let's say you have a really good day, right? And you make $20,000, and your bankroll, I take it out right away. So when I wake up the next morning to do things, I look at the same number on my screens that I looked at yesterday. It's like that didn't happen. I talked to a couple ADW heads, and when I was, these conferences, and I talked to one of them in particular, and I said, you're doing people such a disservice, not showing them their results. Like, it was a major ADW and they wouldn't tell you your win losses or the bets. I said, it's just terrible customer service. And he goes, we don't want them to know how much they're losing. And I said, well, that's terrible. But I go, when do they do bet? Like, you should know that if you give a rebate, they're going to bet and churn. When they win more, they're going to bet. And he goes, oh, we know that. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, you will not believe how much people bet when they make a score. They turn into like these absolute rabid monsters. They've never bet like that in their life. So that money made them change their mind, change their mental state, and they just hammer and go after. So I think as humans, we do that. And I'm not immune to it by any means, even though I've done this for a while. So I don't want that. I don't want that number looking at me. I don't want it to change my play at all. So I bring my bankrolls right back down, and it's like I started another day. I would have done that before.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And I'm not surprised. I mean, I'm sure everyone's been through that make a score betting more kind of a cycle, right?
Yeah, don't. And then when you lose, like I say, I mean, going through it right now, but I haven't. My last win bet was a third of what I would normally bet to win. I bet today, one horse to win, but it was a third of what I would bet, what I would have bet last week. Just I'm leaving that like it is, and we'll see what happens over the next bit. See if I can, get going a little bit. Slumps end, so try to minimize the damage. And then you also sharpen your mind up. I find like when I got that $429 down, I sharpened my play. I found my play was the sharpest, and it was translating to my other accounts, even though I had some money in my other accounts. I just started playing better. Like I truly, I think I'm playing scared. Mark Kramer, scared money, bad, but I'm playing scared is good. I think in some ways, you want to be confident and all the rest, but playing scared, like this is a hard game, and if I am not really in tune with it and playing really well, my skill level isn't good enough to win. Be honest with yourself. I know what my skill level is. I'm not a superstar, Hall of Famer or whatever. I am just me, and I know what my skill level is. And if I am not playing super sharp, I'm not going to win. So I've kind of convinced myself that I have to be very, very sharp. I have to be structured. I have to dot all the I's and cross all the T's, or it's just not worth doing. I'm going to lose.
So anything else about your approach today that you want to highlight that we haven't talked about, as opposed to what you did when you first started? Anything else given this, the game, the way it is today with the CAWs and just, the sharper money in the pools? Anything else that we haven't covered that you want to share?
Well, Dennis Montoro said it, and I alluded to it a little bit, as did you, of the old days, not wanting to bet your opinion, and kind of reading, recognizing when you're the sucker at the table or your horse is good value. But Dennis said it and prefaced it, and I'll preface it exactly the same way. I don't want to talk anybody off a horse they like that's 10-1. But as Dennis noted, they're pretty, if you expect that horse to be 4-1, it's got some positives in the PPs. Like the PPs show that this horse, like it, good on replay, like anything that can be considered public information. You're going to think that there's more than just you on that horse that noticed this. If that's the case, you should expect the horse to be 7-2, 3-1. And if it's 9-1, I will not bet a cent. Like, they are remarkably bad bets for me. I have bet, in fact, I keep track of them, Chris. I have bet 4 of those in the last 12 months, 4 times. I am 0 for 4. I did lose a head bob. There's a Rudy Rodriguez horse. I was convinced that horse, they're wrong, and I lost a head bob, but I'm 0 and 4. I just don't bet them anymore. Doesn't mean you should. You could be a different handicapper, but if it's, as you always say, if it's in the PPs, it's in the price. And if it's in the PPs and the price is way higher than you think, today, 20 years ago, yes. Today, not a chance for me.
So if it's in the PPs and it's not in the price, beware.
Yeah, that's kind of it. That's the other thing too. There's wicked stuff that goes on in the price. Like if it's not in the PPs, it's in the price now. So like there's some horses that the CAWs just absolutely are off. That like, where's the money coming from? You know, McPeak had a horse in last night. The CAWs were and Churchill, the CAWs were nowhere near that horse. Open 9-5. And it's funny. It's one of those horses that went up at the end, went from 5-2 to 7-2 at the end because the CAWs weren't betting this horse. I don't know where that money came from, Chris. Like, I think Betfair had that horse 7-1, and he was not when he was 9-5 on the board. Or Betback. Joe and who was working last night? Joe and Tony. They're two guys that didn't fall off the turnip truck. They're great. I love Joe. I love Joe and Tony. I think they're wonderful handicappers. They know like what a horse had for breakfast last week at Churchill. They're off the horse. Like it just, I don't know where the money came from. So it's all over the place. There's sharp money that's coming from everywhere at this place. At this game now that you have to analyze. And if the sharp money, if it's really sharp money and it's real money, you know, and they're telling you you're that far off, that's like Alan Woods looking at the board saying, I think we're wrong on this one, boys. That's the way I've taken it.
Yeah, I mean, the McPeak is more like 40 years ago, the sharp money was coming from the barn, right? So it wasn't there were no CAWs. So you'd have a horse like that, you know, that would just start, and that's where you were probably looking at, you know, what barns when the horses get bet tend to be right, you know, because sometimes
a little bit
it's not sharp money, it's stable money, but it could be an owner that just always bets its horse, right?
That's the other thing. You can lose your mind trying to figure it out. Like, you know, there's so many rabbit holes, even with CAW. Was that CAW money, or was that like what just happened here? I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know. Maybe some people do, but I don't. They come from all over, and some of them are remarkable, Chris. Like I don't know where they come from. Like there's harness stuff that comes in, and some of the most bizarre A/B tests you will have at harness racing, and I mean in big pools of $3 million a night bet. I mean, this isn't some fair track where like a driver change will be bet, and you're thinking it just happened a little while ago. There was a driver change in this barn in the third, and everybody's saying, "Oh, it's the Arad Ortiz thing. It's just taking money." This is the leading driver in Canada. Went from a trainer driver who's not a bad driver actually. But this horse was hammered, and he was hammered in every single pool. She was in the third. She was hammered in the doubles. They have rolling doubles. She was hammered in the pick 3. I didn't use the horse in my pick 5 because I thought the horse is no good. 4-5 on the board, hammered on the board. And everybody's on Twitter saying it's a driver change to the leading driver in Canada, right? It's this barn. 2 races later, there was the exact same driver change from the exact same barn. The trainer guy, I guess, just wasn't there tonight. Exactly the same. And they just cashed on the horse that aired in the third at 4-5 on this driver change so-called angle. This horse was a better horse. I actually keyed this horse in the pick 5, not because of a driver change, because the horse was really good the previous race. And the horse's 5th choice in a pick 5 pool that has $130,000 in it. 5th choice. The other one in the third was like first choice with a bullet, 3-5. The horse opens at 8-1, closes at 9-2. It's the deadest horse on the board ever off this supposed driver change, which is exactly the same as the third. And the horse comes 8th. Like, where did all that money come from? It wasn't CAWs. The driver, I know a friend that actually knows the driver, and he thought the one in the 5th would be really good. He said, after all, the horse raced terrible, might have bled, but I thought she'd be really good. But everybody's off that horse. Like, where is this coming from? Sometimes I just scratch my head and I have no clue.
Yeah, well, that's the danger of going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's the same thing with Arad Ortiz at, some of his horses, rider change, Safi Joseph, they'll open up at 9-2. They'll be dead in the pick fives. And then the next one will be super live. And I'm like, well, is it a rat or tease? Like, what are they betting, right? In the end, they're betting the horse. That horse in the third, no matter who was driving him, in my example, was probably going to be even money that night. They got vet work done. She had a great week, like whatever. And the one in the fifth was going to be terrible, no matter who was driving it too, even though it was the same driver change, right? So I don't try to look at that too much. I just try to bet horses and see how I do. At the end of the month, I check and see if I've got a red number or a green number.
All right. Well, anything else that we haven't covered that you wanted to bring up, that any other topic or point that you wanted to raise that we haven't covered?
No, except to say, Chris, when people ask, how they can get better at betting, I point to this pod. I tell them to go to the first episode and hit play. There's so much information from sharp people here, not to mention great stories like that Michael Ketnis guy. I love that pod. Honestly, this is a tremendous resource. There's an old story. There's a weird old story or an old fable. It was like Picasso's walking down the street and a lady pulls a napkin out of her wallet and a pencil and says, "Oh my God, you're Picasso. You changed my life. Your art. Can you just sketch me a picture?" And Picasso takes the little pen and shades something and for 30 seconds and hands her back the napkin and says, "This will be $1 million." She says, $1 million? What are you talking about? It took you 30 seconds. He said, well, it took me 30 years to do that in 30 seconds. And this is the way I look at your pod here. And I hope you keep doing it. I hope people listen to it. Present company excluded. There are a lot of Picassos here that are doing this all for absolute free. And I have learned, I am back playing it partially by listening to your pod. The industry should thank you, because I have given them some serious takeout money over the last 18 months. It was partially due to listening to your pod, getting my juices flowing, listening to people like Mike and Paul and Barry Meadow and all the rest. So I just sincerely hope you keep doing it. And if any player is out there that listened to this and lasted this long with my drivel that hasn't listened to it, they should go back and listen to it, because there's just a treasure trove of stuff. I commend you for what you did, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed every podcast as well. And I think you're underestimating yourself. I think you've brought up a lot of good points, especially, for players, have gone through the same thing, success, then struggle, and then, battling through success again. I mean, that's sort of well, you're a Canadian, but that's kind of the American story, right? It's a standard plot line in any movie, whether it's American or not, that you have that initial success, but then you have the struggle, and it's that coming out the other end of that struggle. That's, the story. And so I'm sharing that story and showing people that, you can do that. You can learn, teach an old dog, I don't want to be pejorative, but an old dog new tricks, right? Or the old dog can teach himself some new tricks, right? If you apply yourself and you're passionate about it. So that's great, I think.
Yeah, it's a harder than ever game. And Tommy Massis, I think on Twitter, one of your other podcasts, said, you always keep evolving. You shouldn't just, try and settle. But coming back to do this is extremely hard. But, like I said, I wouldn't have come on if I hadn't, if I was losing piles of money or something trying this. I would have never came on. I would have been so embarrassed to do that in my own head. But, honestly, Chris, I think the game's still, I still think it's beatable. I really do. I don't know, maybe 6 months from now, my results are going to be terrible and it's just too hard, or I don't know. But I still think the game is beatable. And I think it's beatable for people that have a $500 balance in their Twin Spires account. They should probably get a rebate account, but anyway, I think it's still beatable. And maybe I'm woefully naive. Maybe this is all, just for the 1/10 of 100%, and I'm not that guy, and I'll get a comeuppance in a year. But I think it is. I really still think it is.
Well, I agree, and I don't necessarily think anybody can beat it, but I think anybody that's currently playing can improve. They can still get better. I don't know if they'll become profitable, but they can cut their losses. And a lot of times it's not anything that's that hard. It may be a big change, but some of the things we talked about here, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You have to work at it, and you've developed bad habits. Those are always hard to break. But I do think everybody can get better. And I definitely agree with you that it's tough. It's a tough game, but it's not impossible. And I mean, we've had examples of that on this podcast. So I totally agree with that.
And there's a lot of people that, my friend I mentioned, 50 years, profitable. There are people out there doing this, and there's a lot of ways to do it. But it certainly takes a mental state, and, you could dot your I's and cross your T's and be very good. And I don't, even when I was playing, Chris, when I was playing and I was profitable 9 years, I even after year 3, I was just, okay, no, the game's too hard. Things are going to go, things are going away. But if you get consistency and you play consistently, and you track your statistics, and then you try to just improve a little bit. Like right now, I'm playing too much volume. I know that, and my results are not as good. I've modified things and I'm probably going to scale back a little bit now. But you're constantly changing, you're constantly evolving, you're constantly trying new things, like try some pick 3 tickets and see if you play a bit better, see if you get better results. So there's always things to improve, and we're so stubborn, and we love this game, and we're so analytical that we want to be better all the time. And it's a great game. It's almost like playing golf. If you can break even, you're a scratch golfer. I say if you're a scratch golfer, a break even horse player is probably pretty equal. And if you're a scratch golfer, you always want to see how far you can go under par. And if you have that taste of 0.95 or 0.98 ROI, you can improve your game in some ways, and you can really enjoy it a lot more. And that's why I hope this podcast that you've assembled here with all these great players, it might give people 4 or 5%, just a few things, maybe even getting a rebate, but 4 or 5%. And you can really snowball from there and enjoy the game so much more. And it's a great game. So I think that's why we do this, right? This is a great game. The sport is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And, part of the joy is just trying to get better, right? The process of improving. You can, it could be a grind, but I mean, that challenge and trying to, constantly improve and constantly evolve, that's part of the fun, I think. And I think people who like those kinds of challenges are the kind of people who are drawn to this game, and are the ones that are more likely to be successful, for sure.
Totally agree. I'm the same way. I mentioned I had a couple week losing streak, and it's like I've got a different set of past performances when I'm playing past 5 out of or 8 out of 9 days, something like that. But I'm excited to analyze stuff on my days off, Monday, Tuesday, mostly Wednesday. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to, play a little less volume. I'm probably going to cut out one track because I'm looking at too much now, because I made a conscious decision to play more about 3 months ago, play higher volume, with consultation from smart players that said you should play higher volume. But I'm going to scale back, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm not down about it, or, I'm not down. I've had a losing streak. I'm totally stoked to get ready to do that again. You always try to get better.
Yes, I think that's the key. And if you're not in that mindset, and you don't feel like you're up to the challenge, and you look forward to trying to get better and meeting the challenge, then probably it's not the game's not for you, or maybe you need a break, come back with a fresh approach. But I think that's the key, is you just got to have that. You got to look forward to each day, each bet, each race. And if you're in that kind of mindset, everything else kind of takes care of itself.
Totally agree, my friend. You've been at this a while. It's like you're almost a smart player. It's almost like you're an NHC Hall of Fame handicapper, Chris.
No, I'll tell you, I've learned a lot just with the podcasts and from talking to all these players. I mean, some of them I've known, or most of them I probably have known to some extent and talked to them before. But just being able to be in this kind of a setting where they open up and kind of share some of their insights, and I've gained a lot. Sometimes it's reinforced things that I've always felt. Sometimes it's made me think about things differently. But I certainly learned a lot, and I know I still have a lot more to learn, and I look forward to getting better and meeting the challenge, just like you, and hopefully just like most of the listeners out there. So I want to thank you for spending the time. Time flew by, as it always does, at least for me, and maybe not for the guests or the listeners, but I've really enjoyed it, and appreciate it. I'm sure the listeners will as well. And I appreciate all the listeners out there, especially sticking around for each of these podcasts. And I hope all of you, and I wish all of you success, and may you boldly go where no horse player has gone before.